answering your questions about retirement. It's Money Talk with Michael Eastham.
My husband and I are both 64 and would like to retire in the next few years. We've done a lot of planning on our own but have concerns about long-term care expenses and the best way to cover them. Can you shed some light on the options?
Okay, well, the long-term care question, thanks so much for it. I'm glad you asked, and we do get this quite a bit. Now, when it comes to long-term care, there are a couple of different things that you can consider when you're trying to weave long-term care into your overall financial and retirement strategy. The first one is let the government take care of it through the use of Medicaid. The downside is that you effectively have to spend down the majority, if not all, of your personal assets, or at least appear to have spent them all down. The other downside is simply the fact that most of the time the nursing homes that are supported by Medicaid are probably not the ones that you want to spend the rest of your life in. That's number one. The second option is an option where you can use a life insurance policy that has a living rider that gives you the ability to access the death benefit for long-term care. And many times there'll be a lot more than the money that you're putting into the policy. So for example, you could purchase a policy that maybe you set aside $100,000 into that policy, and it gives you $400,000 worth of long-term care benefit over 3 or 4 or 5 years. That gives you some flexibility and gives you some options on how you want to use the long-term care benefit, whether you want in-home care or you want to choose the assisted living facility of your choice. And then the third option is simply self-funding. What I help people understand and what I've found over the years is that generally if you have assets between, say, $500,000 and maybe $2 to $2.5 million, then the hybrid option might be a good choice to consider. If you have in excess of $2 to $2.5 million, you might want to consider the last option, which is self-funding. In other words, you set aside or earmark specific assets intentionally for long-term care down the road should you need it. Now, we've got lots of resources available, including a webinar that I did on long-term care, many of the points that I just talked about, but going into quite a bit more detail. So if you're interested in checking out that webinar, just call our office. We'll get you a link to the recorded webinar, and that'll get you started down the road. Of course, any other questions, definitely reach out and we'll be happy to help you and come up with a good informed decision about long-term care. So thanks so much for that question.
If you've got a financial question you'd like to have answered, click on the link below to submit your question. You may hear your answer on an upcoming edition of Money Talk.